everyone from Chelsea Fan TV. I hope we're all doing very, very well. Listen, not long until we take on Fluminense in the Club World Cup semi-final. And I'll be honest with you, if you asked me at the beginning of the tournament, I remember when I was asked outside the Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta before we were going to play against LAFC, I was asked, where do you think Chelsea will finish in the Club World Cup? Do you think we can win the Club World Cup? And I said, no. I honestly looked at the guy who was interviewing me and I was like, you asked that question in a way which seems like we should obviously win the Club World Cup, or we're obviously going to win the Club World Cup. And I honestly thought, why would you think that? And I understand why I felt like that at the time. And to be honest with you, I don't think I was exactly wrong in thinking that. But we are in the semi-final. We are no longer in the group phase. We're not in the last 16. We're not in the quarterfinals because we've already completed all of those challenges. And now we come up against Thiago Silva. The first time he's ever played against Chelsea since leaving the club. And he has the opportunity to take on his former teammates at the MetLife Stadium and, fulfill his own legacy. But as much as I love Thiago Silva, as much as I miss Thiago Silva, what he represents, having that experience, this team has shown over the past number of weeks that we are more mature than even I expected. And, even the fact that we've got to a semi-final, don't get it wrong. We'd love to win the competition. I think it's a fantastic achievement. I think it's a brilliant achievement. And I think we have to take our hats off to the team, to the manager, for getting us to this stage. And I'd love you to tell me in the comments as well, where did you honestly think that we would get in this tournament before it started? I said the quarterfinals because I thought we'd lose to Bayern Munich. Now we're in the semi-finals. I would really like us to get to the final, and I think it's realistic. But I still don't sit here with confidence that we can win it, because you'd then have to beat PSG or Real Madrid, which I think is the biggest challenge that we've had so far in this competition. But I am feeling pretty good, about Chelsea. I'm feeling pretty confident. And I think that every single match that we've played, we have gradually improved. And I think that we've got better. And I don't think that's an understatement either. I think that is a realistic statement to make. We obviously beat LAFC in the first match 2-0. We lost to Flamengo. We were poor in both of those games, to be quite frank. We then beat Esperance Tunis. We beat them 3-0. It wasn't a great performance, but, it was enough to beat them. And we beat Benfica 4-1, and I thought, that is a bloody good performance. I had to rewatch the game because I wasn't there. I was stuck on a flight that was delayed. There was a 5-hour delay on one of my flights, so I couldn't make the game because we thought we were going to finish first in the group. So obviously we booked accommodation in Miami, and then the game ended up happening in Charlotte. But then I went to the Palmeiras game. I saw Estevao in there, and I just think that we're gradually getting better. I'm not sitting here saying that it's the greatest cup run in the world, because you can definitely look at some of the matches and say, Chelsea have been pretty lucky in some respects with the teams that we've played. We played Benfica instead of Bayern Munich. We had a relatively easy group phase. We didn't even finish first in the group. We finished second. But that's turned out to be in our favor. And it's like anything. You have luck, but what can you make from it? There's a lot of people that have situations that turn out well, but they don't get anything from it. And Chelsea have taken it in their stride. And now we come into this match with a realistic chance of achieving something really great. And, I've seen some comments of people saying all the ownership care about is the pound note. Well, if that's the case, we are in the pinnacle of the pound note competition. So by definition, we should be looking to win this competition because we like money at this club. The ownership love the money. And there's an awful lot up for grabs. I think that if we win this next game, we'll win like $25 million. And it's a significant amount, especially when you look at what's happened with UEFA. You know, we have basically committed for the coming season to losing only 65 million euros. We're going to have to sell some players in order to buy them. But hey, when you look at profitability and being smart, the Club World Cup is an easy way to make money. And within 2 matches, we could make another $50 million. So what an opportunity. What an absolute opportunity. And what a great experience America was as well, by the way. I'm back in England. But yeah, now I can watch on the telly. A little bit less warm out here, but it's good. But yeah, my prediction in terms of the lineup, I don't think a lot will change. I think there's a few things will happen. I think we'll have the same goalkeeper, obviously Sanchez in goal. I think Reece James will probably slot back in as a right back, not in the midfield, because Caicedo's already been rested. So I think he comes back in there with Enzo Fernandez. I don't see Andre Santos starting in this game just because Fernandez has been in great form. But I'll be honest with you, I wouldn't have an issue with Santos playing. And if Santos plays, it probably means that Enzo is dropped. But that's one decision that I don't have a massive problem with, regardless of what happens. Because we've got no Colwell, I think it'll be Tosin and Chalobah with Cucurella on the left. Palmer in the 10, Neto on the right, Jackson up top because the lap is out. And then I would actually put good money on João Pedro starting as a left winger. So it would look something like this if you were to see the lineup. That's roughly what I would go for. And yeah, I think that's a pretty solid lineup, to be fair. Would have been nice to have Colwell in there, but Tosin and Chalobah have done pretty well in this tournament. And then obviously James, you got a bit of experience in there as well. One player that hasn't actually disappointed us much in recent times is Robert Sanchez. He was criticised for the goal that Estevao scored against us when we played Palmeiras, but I don't think that was Robert Sanchez's fault. I think that was just an unbelievable goal. I know it was near post, but it was right in the top corner. I don't criticise the goalkeeper for that. And I will say this, which is that I think Robert Sanchez has actually performed okay in this tournament. Yeah, his distribution has been pretty poor most of the time, but we've come to accept that. As long as he's not making stupid mistakes, I think that we have to pretty much, be happy with Sanchez because let's face it, it could be a lot worse. We've seen a lot worse from him. So hopefully he can maintain his form, if not upgrade a little bit. And then just going on to a little bit of news, regarding this fixture as well. We know that Chelsea's a young squad, but when you look at the difference in age between Chelsea and Fluminense, I mean, it's quite incredible. The average age of Chelsea's squad at the moment is about 24 years old, and Fluminense is 31. So a huge gap in terms of the experience of the Brazilians and then our side at Chelsea. But I can imagine that a big part of that is because of players like Thiago Silva, almost 40, I think. He's going to push that age bracket up. I actually would have predicted our age would have been lower than 24. So I was almost surprised when I saw it. I thought it would be about 22. But we have had a couple of years with some of the same players. So I guess the average age was always going to go up. Just touching on a little bit of Chelsea news. Chelsea want in excess of £50 million for Noni Madueke. The club believe the current market justifies such a figure given the valuation of Kudus and Elanga. Kudus obviously valued about 60 or 70 million, and Elanga 45. So no surprises there. I think that's a fair valuation, to be honest. I'm seeing some people saying that Madueke should be sold for 60 million. But if we're actually genuinely open to selling him, then I think that you have to work with other clubs as well. I think there's about £10 million difference with Arsenal and Chelsea. I mean, there's been no bid as it stands, but I wouldn't be surprised if, Arsenal were offering 40 and we wanted 50 and we meet somewhere in the middle at 45. I think that's a fair deal. I don't think it's the best deal that Chelsea could get. But again, if we're looking to raise money, and we know that with, some of the, with what we've agreed with UEFA, we're going to have to sell in order to buy. But it's not a massive issue because we've got plenty of players that we can sell. I mean, there's an endless list. Obviously, Petrovic is another one of those players who could be sold. He's a Sunderland target, according to The Athletic. But there's strong competition from at least 5 other teams. Chelsea have a gentleman's agreement in place with Petrovic, which allows him to leave for £25 million, which I think is, quite frankly, terrible business and terrible footballing business as well. I think it's poor on both sides. You're only making a £10 million profit. I think that Petrovic is worth more than 25 million. I'd honestly sell him for 35 as a minimum. And I think people would pay that. I'm surprised that there's not more interest for Petrovic, but hey, who knows? So I think there's a good chance that he ends up leaving the club for that amount. And, just looking at Madueke and Petrovic, for example, if you're raising that money, you've got about 70 million there straight away. And that solves any issues in terms of us needing to raise funds to bring someone else in. Those are just 2 players. We haven't even spoken about Sterling, Chilwell, Chukwuemeka. Got so many players that we can offload. And, not just players that we can offload, players that people are interested in as well. I think the hardest one is going to be Sterling and Chilwell because of that high wage, but obviously Nkunku's in there. Chelsea have always been open to selling him. Crystal Palace have inquired about Josh Achimpong as well on a season loan from Chelsea, according to Mike McGrath of the Daily Telegraph. And I think that, listen, it's not a bad deal in terms of the player's development. That would be if he wasn't getting any game time at Chelsea. But I'll be honest with you, I don't really see any reason for him to leave. I certainly don't see a reason for him to leave on loan. I think he's going to get lots of minutes at Chelsea this season. But if Maresca has it that he won't be playing and he's way down on the pecking order, then you would say, yeah, bring him out on a loan. But from what we've seen from Josh Achimpong, he's not getting better. He's not getting worse at Chelsea. He's getting better. So really important to establish that and then say, is he actually getting any minutes? And the answer is yes. He's not playing every game, but he plays enough games that I could justify keeping him at the club. And then maybe another season after that, if he's not happy with his minutes, you can send him out on a loan. But I don't see any point in sending him out on a loan unless the primary goal here is to sell him on for a profit, which wouldn't surprise me either, to be quite frank. So, we'll have to wait and see what happens there. And Nkunku's a target for Bayern Munich. They're keen on bringing him back to Germany, but Chelsea are insisting on a permanent deal. I think it's unlikely that he goes out on loan, but there is interest there for Nkunku, so keep your eyes on that one. Same with Chukwuemeka as well. They want another loan for Chukwuemeka, but Chelsea obviously want an outright sale. So a deal is difficult at this stage. So there is interest, guys. There is interest, but when you're negotiating with the Germans, as an example, I mean, they are not generally heavy spenders. Bayern Munich will obviously cough up a lot of cash, but they don't do it all the time. They do quite like a bargain as well. Dortmund never cough up any cash unless they're looking to sell. That's the only way that big sums are generally associated with them. So I don't see the Chukwuemeka deal happening. I think the Bayern Munich deal is plausible, but unlikely again with Nkunku. But we'll see. We'll see what happens there. And then also, that there's an article that come out from The Athletic saying that Nicholas Jackson is not considered untouchable and he could leave Chelsea following the arrivals of Liam Delap and João Pedro. And if that's the case, then what I will say is that's a fee where I would command more than I would for Noni Madueke, because Madueke has already kind of been replaced with Esteval coming in. Whereas I think Jackson still has a place in this squad, and I think he's a more valuable asset than Madueke. The thing that Madueke gives you is he's a direct winger who can play on both sides. He doesn't give you a lot of GA, though, and there are doubts, especially from the Chelsea fan base, at least, about his attitude. When it comes to Nicholas Jackson, I think he's got a great attitude. I think he makes some rash decisions at times. He does make some very silly choices. But he's proven that he can get you 10, 15 goals. I don't know how many GA he gets. I'm not sure about how many assists off the top of my head, but probably anywhere between 15 and 20. He's a decent striker. Like, he's decent. I like Jackson. I'd quite like to keep him at Chelsea, to be honest. But I do think we definitely needed more competition, and we've got that with João Pedro and Liam Delap in the squad. So that will certainly help. But if we are going to sell Jackson, I would be commanding a fee of 60 million or more. And I don't think there's any issue with that, just because we don't need to sell him. And I think he's a player that a lot of clubs would like to have in their squad. 70 is probably a bit much. I think 60 is a realistic amount. But yeah, I personally wouldn't sell Jackson right now unless we had to. So let me know what you think, guys. I'm not going to give you a score prediction for the Fluminense game because, to be quite frank, I don't know what's going to happen. All right. Sometimes, you just have these scores written in your head. You know what you think is going to happen, but I don't have a clue. But if you ask me, you say, Alex, you have to give us a prediction, I would tell you 3-2 to Chelsea in regular time, in 90 minutes. There you go, 3-2. Let me know what you think in the comments, guys. Big up to everyone watching. Really appreciate your time. And we will catch up very soon.